Hello everyone, welcome to Easy Economics. How are you all doing? Today I brought for you all May-June 2024 MCQ paper 2281 and 0455 variant 11. So let's begin and see what this paper has brought for us today. As we all know, 30 questions will be there in this paper and 45 minutes will be given to you. Maximum you should take 1.5 minutes to solving each MCQ. However, since I'm explaining you the MCQs, we will be taking a little longer, but then advisable for you is not to dwell more than 1.5 minutes. All right, let's see what MCQ number 1 says. MCQ number 1 says, what is a free good? By definition, we all know a free good is a product which does not require A, any resources to make it, and B, it doesn't have any opportunity cost. Now, keeping this definition in mind, let's look at the options available and see which is the correct one. On my right, you can see this answer sheet. This would be the sheet you would be getting on your exam day in order to shade in the responses. Many of you are familiar with it. However, I've still brought in for you all so that you realize that you need to shade in the correct responses. All right. So what is a free good? A says free samples of a new product. B says health services provided by the state. C says second-hand clothing. And D says sunlight. Exactly. It has to be sunlight. Why? Because neither does any resources are required to produce it, nor does the production of sunlight requires any opportunity cost. Hence, the correct answer for MCQ number 1 is D. Easy peasy. This is what happens when you know the definitions by heart and the concepts are crystal clear and they are on your fingertips. So lesser amount will be required and you can save your time in solving MCQs that are difficult to comprehend or require certain calculation to be made before you answer them, right? All right. What does MCQ number 2 says? MCQ number 2 says a firm is deciding whether to produce good X or good Y for the next 5 years. The predicted revenue for good X is $20,000 per year. However, for Y, it's $18,000 per year. So the expected revenue a firm expects to get from the production of X is 20,000 and for Y, it's 18,000. So they're saying, what is the opportunity cost of producing good X? Now they're saying if the firm decided to produce X, right? This means it can either produce X or Y. So if it goes for X, what will be the opportunity cost? First, tell me what is opportunity cost? The cost of the best alternative foregone due to a particular choice made. What is the choice being made? That the firm is going to produce good X. What is being foregone? Good Y. So now, if good Y is being foregone, so the revenue that would have been generated from the production of good Y is the cost that you are foregoing. So what was the cost? The cost was 18,000 per year. So 18,000 per year means 18,000 into 5 for 5 years. So what does this give you? This gives you 90,000. So this 90,000 is the cost, opportunity cost of producing good X. So the correct answer is option C. So for 2, it has to be C. I hope this is clear. All right. Number 3. Number 3, MCQ says the diagram shows a PPC that we can see for an economy. On the vertical axis, they are displaying good Y. On the horizontal axis, they are showing good X. Initially, the economy was at a position M. Now it has decided to move towards N. When it was at M, it was producing this much amount of good Y and it was producing this much amount of good X. Now, when it has decided to move from point M to point N, obviously this calls for a reallocation of resources. You're reallocating your resources from what? From the production of good Y towards the production of good X, right? Now they are asking you, what is the reason for the economy for moving from point M to point N? Now they are asking you, what could have been the reason for this decision of an economy to move towards M to N? Yes, the correct answer is, thank you, the correct answer is increased resource allocation to the production of good X. But then let's look at the options, the other options, and then find out the reason why it should be D. A says decreased unemployment in industries producing good X. You see, if there would have been unemployment in the production in producing good X, so this means we could have been somewhere inside the PPC. Unemployed resources mean what? That you still have resources which you could have utilized and made a move towards the PPC. So if this means if you could have utilized your unemployed resources, so that means you would have moved from inside towards the PPC. However, they are suggesting a move from one point to the other by remaining on that same curve. So that is why A cannot be the answer. B says an improvement in technology used to produce X, and C says increased productivity of workers. Now, both B and C are suggesting a shift outwards of the PPC. However, in this scenario, what is happening? You're moving from M to N, and both the points are at the same time on the PPC. This is the reason why B and C can be the correct responses. That is why B is the correct answer to MCQ number 3. Hope this makes sense. All right. Number 4. What is not held constant when drawing a demand curve for a good or service? What happens? When we draw a demand curve, that's usually downward sloping. On the vertical axis, we show price. On the horizontal axis, we show the quantity. What does a demand curve talks about? A demand curve shows the responsiveness in the quantity demanded with response to changes in prices, right? So as the price rises or as the price falls, we try and see what would be the impact on the quantity demanded, right? However, what happens? What assumption do we make? We assume that all the other factors except for price remain constant. So the other factors except for price are ceteris paribus. Now they are saying what is not held constant. So what is not held constant is the price of the good or the services. And all the other factors are held constant. So this means consumers' income, taste and preferences, and the prices of substitutes are all held constant. So these cannot be the answers. And D is the correct answer. All right. Number 5. Number 5 shows a supply curve shift. There's a shift in the supply curve for New Zealand's airlines from S1 to S2. So now you're moving from S1 to S2. There is an outward shift in the supply curve of airlines. The vertical axis is displaying the price. The horizontal is displaying the quantity supplied. Now they're saying what is the most likely cause of this shift. They are saying, why do you think the supply curve would have shifted outwards towards the right? Rule of thumb says there must have been something. It could have been a fall in the cost, right? It could be. Now, as we read option number A, this is a decrease in the cost of New Zealand's airlines. Yes, 5 has to be A, but then before being too sure about the answer, let's look at why the other options cannot be the answers. B says a decrease in the number of people wanting to fly to New Zealand. If this is referring to the demand, so if demand would have been falling, this refers to the demand of the demand for the airlines. So, but over here we are talking for the supply. So B cannot be the answer. C says an increase in the price of train and bus travel in New Zealand. So if there is an increase in the price of train and bus travel in New Zealand, there would have been a decrease in the demand for train and bus travel, right? There would have been a fall in the demand for train and bus travel. So as a result, there would have been an increase. So it's again referring, it would have been an increase in the demand for airlines then, right? But over here, we are talking about the supply. So this is not referring to the supply. D says an increase in the tax on airline travel. So if there would have been an increase in the tax on air travel, so the supply would have fallen and not risen. So you can chop D off. That is why by elimination and by logic, A is the correct answer. So for 5, it has to be A. Number 6. Number 6 says what could cause the price of tea to increase? So now they are saying the price of tea is rising, and they are saying, what do you think would be the reason behind it? A decrease in the demand for tea. If there would have been a decrease in the demand for tea, so the price of tea would have fallen and not risen. So A cannot be the answer. B says a decrease in the price of a substitute good. Now you see, if there would have been a decrease in the price of a substitute good, let's say coffee, so demand for coffee would have been increasing. So if demand for coffee would have been increasing, so demand for tea would have been falling. So if demand for tea would have been falling, so the price of tea would have been falling. But over here, we are talking about the increase, so B cannot be the option. C says an increase in the price of a substitute good. Yes, it makes sense. Why? Because if the price of coffee, which is the substitute, if the price of coffee is increasing, so this means the consumers are shifting from coffee towards tea. So this means there would be an increase in demand for tea. So if there is an increase in demand for tea, this means there would be a price rise or in tea. That is why 6 is C. It cannot be D. Why? Because if there would have been an increase in the supply of tea, so the price of tea would have fallen. But over here, we want an increase. That is why it cannot be D. So again, by elimination and by logic, answer to 6 is option C. Number 7. Number 7 says a firm changes the price of its product and finds that its revenue increases. So now a firm changes its product's price, and what happens as a result is that its revenue rises. Now they are saying which combination of price change and PED, the price elasticity of demand, could have caused this. So then they are asking which combination of the two would have resulted in an increase in revenue. Now, option B says price elasticity of demand is equals to 1. This means it's unitarily elastic. So this means that the revenue would have neither risen nor have fallen. So we can chop B off that instant only. Now we want our revenue to increase. Now you tell me in which scenario do usually a revenue of a firm increases? What should be the situation for the PED? If the price is, if you are increasing the price, so the price elasticity of demand should be inelastic. So PED should be inelastic. And if you are decreasing the price, so PED should be elastic for the revenue to increase, right? It could be either one of these situations. Now they are saying option number A says price is falling and price elasticity of demand is between 0 and 1. That means in spite of the fact that the price is falling, but your PED is what? PED is inelastic. So this means a price fall would not bring an increase in revenue. Rather, it would cause the revenue to fall. So A cannot be the option. B says price is rising and the PED is greater than 1. So this means you increase the price, but the price elasticity of demand is highly elastic. So this means the demand would fall. So when the demand would fall, your revenue will fall. This means D cannot be the option. C says price is rising and the PED is between 0 to 1. What situation is it satisfying? Yes, it is satisfying this first situation we identified. If the price is rising and PED is inelastic, this means you've raised the price, but there would be little fall, little or no change in the quantity demanded. So as a result, the firm will experience a rise in revenue. Hence, it's option C. So the correct answer for 7 is C. All right. Let's look at 8. 8 says what could not occur in a market economic system. What is a market economy? In which consumer sovereignty prevails, right? In which there is no role of the government or the public sector. Now they're saying which could not occur, right? So this means all the 3 options would be there in the market economy except for one option, which is the answer, and which would not be found in market economy. Now, if you look at option A, it talks about a monopolist supplying specialist goods to the market. B says excessive pollution created by power stations. C says government setting minimum wages to relieve poverty. And D says private ownership of firms making defense equipment. So a monopoly, excessive pollution, which is negative externalities. D, which is private ownership of firms. These all are what? Attributes, features, or characteristics of market economy. So these can be found in a market economic system. However, it's C, which is government setting minimum wages to relieve poverty, which cannot be a feature of market economic system and which will not occur. Hence, it has to be C. You should read the questions carefully and read the keyword twice, which they have highlighted, which was not. I hope this is clear. Number 9. What is the correct definition of a demerit good? A says a good which generates external benefits. Obviously not. Demerit means it can never be beneficial. B says a good with higher private cost than social cost. No. C says a good which is more harmful to consumers than they realize. Yes, that's the definition of a demerit good. That the harm brought about to the consumer is beyond their imagination. Right? So 9 has to be C. Keep your definitions intact, which will help you to do certain MCQs really quick. Number 10. Within the same firm, one employee is paid a higher wage than the other employee. So there are 2 individuals working in the same firm. However, one is paid higher. the other is not. Now they're saying which reason for the difference in their wage could be considered discrimination. So this means there's only one reason out of these four options which is unjustified. The other three options can be the reason for the wage differential to exist, right? The other three options are justified for wage differentials to exist. However, there is only one option which they have given, which they say is not justified. A says they are of different ages, B says different levels of education, C says different levels of productivity, D says different levels of work experience. So education, productivity, and work experiences all make sense. Based on these three options, yes, wage differentials can exist, right? And that's not discrimination. However, option A is a sign of discrimination. They are of different ages. Yes, you cannot bifurcate them and make a wage differential just on the basis of age. So 10 has to be A. All right, number 11. Number 11 says the diagram shows the demand and the supply curve for labor. For a firm, the initial wage rate is given by WO and the equilibrium quantity of labor employed is LO. So initially the firm was over here. Now they're saying a trade union that used to represent all the workers negotiated a rise in the wage. And they were able to negotiate a higher wage for their employees. And what has happened is that the wage rate has risen. Now they are saying from WO to W1. Now they're saying what is the amount of unemployment. Now as a result, what do you think should be the amount of unemployment? Now look at the diagram carefully. At WO, this was the demand, this was the supply. The market was in an equilibrium situation and this was the quantity of labor being supplied. Now what's happening? When the wage rate has risen from WO to W1, this is the quantity demanded and this is the quantity supplied. So this difference is what? The excess amount of labor being supplied, which means supply of labor is greater than demand for labor. This means this highlighted area is the excess or the unemployment or the unemployed people. So L2, L1. So L1, L2, that's the amount of unemployment resulting from a wage rise, right? Because this is what the firms are demanding, and the firm is demanding, and this is what the amount of people who are willing to work now. So this is all excess. So 11 has to be D. Number 12. Number 12 says, a farmer introduces machinery to help workers at harvest time. The farmer also reduces the number of workers by 50%. As a result, the total harvest increases by 25%. What is happening? That the farmer has given workers machinery in order to assist them, facilitate them. As a result, it has also removed 50% of its workforce. So the workforce has been reduced by 50%. But what has happened is that the productivity or the farm output has risen by 25%. So the output has risen. This means the production has risen, right? Now they are saying what has happened. A says, now this means production has risen. So now in whichever options you find production decreasing, you can chop it off. So A says production has decreased and C says production has decreased. So you can chop A and C at that moment only. So now you are left with two options, B and D. Now you've got to decide whether productivity has also increased with production or not. You tell me. Yes, productivity has increased. Why? Because now per unit of labor, more amount is being produced. You see, you slash down the amount of labor, hence, but still the output has risen. So output per worker has risen. So this means 12 has to be D. The labor productivity has also risen and the production has also increased. So for 12, it has to be option D. Let's look at number 13. Number 13 is not at all difficult. You just need to remember the calculation and you're good to go. All right, pay attention. Number 13 says a firm has fixed costs of $20 and the following total variable costs. Now, fixed cost, you will all know, would remain throughout, right? You keep on adding your units to production, but the fixed cost amount would remain the same. Now, they are saying the first row is showing you output. The second is showing you the total variable cost. Now, they're saying what happens to average total cost over this output range. First, you need to calculate the total cost. Total cost is what? Variable cost plus fixed cost. So, for each level of output, first we'll calculate the fixed cost. For each level of output, we'll calculate the fixed cost. We'll calculate the total cost. Total cost will be calculated how? By adding the fixed and the variable cost. We all know the fixed cost will be 20. So for each variable cost, keep on adding the fixed cost to derive the total cost. For instance, when we are producing 10 units of output, variable cost is 40 and fixed cost is 20. So you add the two up and what do you get? You get 60. Then total variable cost is 60 and again you add 20, you get 80. When you are producing 30 units, the total variable cost is 80. 80 at 20 of fixed cost would give you 100 total cost. When you are producing 40 units, the total variable cost is 100. 100 plus 20, the total fixed cost would be 120. You've got the fixed cost at each unit of outputs being produced. Now you calculate the average fixed cost. Now average fixed cost will be what? The total fixed cost divided by the units of output. Now look at this table. Over here, the total cost was 60. 60 divided by 10 is giving you 6. So this is what? Average total cost. 60 divided by 10. The total cost was 60 in the first case. And the output was how many units were you producing? 10. So 60 upon 10 gives you 6. So you've got 6. Then 80 divided by 20 will give you 4. When you're producing 30 units, the total cost was 100. 100 divided by 30 would give you $3.33. Over here, in the last, when you are producing 40 units, 120 was your total cost. 120 divided by 40 would give you $3. Now look at what is happening to the average total cost. From 6, it went to 4, it went to 3.33, it went to 3. What is happening? Constantly it is falling. So what does the trend suggest? That it falls continuously. So for 13, it has to be A. It's lengthy. The calculation is a bit lengthy, but once you follow the steps and do it carefully, you are good to go with it. Just go over it again if you find it a little tricky. All right? Just go over it how I figured it all out. Number 14. Number 14 is giving you a table. It's showing you the cost and output of a firm. The total cost is $10,000. Total variable cost is $8,000. The quantity it's producing is 10 units. Now they're saying what is the average fixed cost. First, you need to find out what is the fixed cost. We know the total cost is $10,000. So over here, you can write $10,000. The variable cost is $8,000. And the fixed cost you don't know. So how will you calculate the fixed cost? You will subtract 10,000 minus 8,000 and you will get 2,000. So $2,000 is what? $2,000 is your fixed cost and divided by the quantity 10, which would give you $200. So your average fixed cost is $200. So for 14, it has to be A. Get it? First you will derive the fixed cost, then you will divide it by the units produced. You will derive at the average fixed cost system. Number 15. Number 15 says a clothing manufacturer expands by taking over a clothing retailer. What is happening? You are moving from the source of production to the display unit. This means you are moving up, you are moving forward your production line. So this is an example of what? A vertical integration forward. So for 15, it has to be C. You see, you need to look at from where you are heading towards where. You're starting at where? You're a manufacturer and you're taking over what? A display unit. So you're moving forward the production line. So it's a vertical integration. It's an example of a vertical integration forward. So for 15, it has to be C.